In February 1959, 9 elite Soviet mountaineers traveled into the Ural Mountains to secure the highest athletic certification awarded in their country. They were seasoned athletes, trained to survive the subarctic winter, but the group vanished. When search parties finally located their campsite weeks later, the scene defied established survival protocols. These were expertly equipped climbers, yet their final moments left behind several physical contradictions. Their heavy canvas tent was abandoned on a steep, windswept slope. Inside, searchers found the group's heavy winter coats, boots, and essential survival gear, all neatly packed and left behind. Leading away from the tent, straight down the mountain into a negative 30-degree blizzard, were 9 sets of footprints. The spacing of the tracks indicated the group didn't run. They walked together away from their only shelter, wearing nothing on their feet but socks. It took months to uncover their bodies across the wilderness. Some were found frozen in light underwear. Others had sustained extensive skeletal fractures to their ribs and skulls. Empty boots in a frozen tent, deliberate footprints into a storm, internal trauma with no external source. For over 60 years, these anomalies have fueled theories about what drove them to their deaths. Because the physical evidence was so strange, the tragedy became a magnet for speculation. Theories grew to include Yeti attacks, indigenous ambushes, and secret military weapons tests. The documented reality is detailed in the original Soviet criminal case number 619, the forensic autopsy protocols, and modern geotechnical glaciology. Because the hikers were prominent university students, the state launched a large-scale mobilization. They deployed military aviation, army sappers, and indigenous trackers, generating an exhaustive cache of primary documents. Solving the mystery requires stripping away the urban legends and strictly cross-examining the physical evidence left on the mountain. Long lacerations ran across the tent's canvas. Initially, investigators assumed an animal or hostile attackers had slashed their way inside. This forensic report details the microscopic fiber analysis conducted in April 1959 by textile expert Henrietta Churkina. It directly addresses the damage to the canvas. Churkina observed the microscopic displacement of the woven threads. Her conclusion was definitive. The blade cut through the fabric from the inside out. Several puncture marks showed someone inside repeatedly stabbed the canvas to guide the knife in total darkness. The hikers were not ambushed by outsiders. They were frantically cutting emergency escape hatches to flee an acute threat that had collapsed on them from above. After escaping the tent, the group fled down to the tree line. Searchers found the first 2 bodies stripped down to their underwear near the remnants of a small fire. Medical science explains this through 2 specific phenomena. During terminal hypothermia, blood vessels suddenly dilate, creating a burning sensation that causes victims to undress. Additionally, survivors salvaged clothing from their deceased companions to insulate themselves. The bodies found deep in a ravine were also missing their tongues and eyes, which fueled rumors of violent mutilation. This table of the autopsy findings by Dr. Boris Vozrozhdeny clarifies the condition of the remains. The victims with missing soft tissue lay face down and submerged in a flowing snowmelt stream for 3 months, where they underwent natural aquatic decay. Dr. Vozrozhdeny's autopsies revealed that several victims in the ravine had suffered bilateral symmetrical rib fractures and depressed skull fractures. The medical examiner noted these injuries required mechanical force comparable to an automobile collision. In 2021, scientists at the Swiss Federal Institutes of Technology ran advanced geotechnical computer models that successfully aligned the physical trauma with the environment. The simulation points to a fatal setup decision. To pitch their tent on an incline, the hikers cut a vertical shoulder directly into the weak snowpack to create a flat surface. Over the next 7 to 13 hours, freezing katabatic winds accelerated down the mountain. They transported dense, drifting snow onto the ridge, accumulating directly above the tent. The accumulation eventually reached a critical mass. A localized, dense snow slab sheared off the upper ridge and slid down onto the canvas. This geotechnical model provides the exact mechanical force required to crush ribs and skulls against hard wooden floorboards. It collapsed the structure, trapped the occupants in darkness, and forced them to slash their way out and flee barefoot into the night. Even with the physical evidence explained, a single phrase from lead investigator Lev Ivanov's 1959 report remains a center point for folklore: the conclusion that the hikers died from an unknown compelling force. This linguistic breakdown reveals how a critical historical mistranslation shifted the entire context of the investigation. In Russian, Ivanov wrote "stikiyinaya sila." In the 1959 Soviet legal code, this phrase was the equivalent of force majeure, or an act of nature. It was the standard bureaucratic closure required for fatal weather-related events to officially rule out criminal or military culpability. The events on Kalatsiak represent the intersection of extreme subarctic physics and a single fatal setup decision. The group's final moments were a struggle against the mechanical force of the mountain itself.